Naofumi's isekai adventure comes to an end in the final episode of the first season of The Rising of the Shield Hero. Hello my friends and welcome to my review of the final episode of the first season of Rising of the Shield Hero. This was a pretty satisfying ending to what is otherwise a pretty fun isekai anime series. Not groundbreaking in any senses, it's not going to win any awards for the best animation, character design, or anything like that, but it still managed to be a pretty pleasant surprise. I myself am not really a very big fan of the isekai genre, as there are just a dime a dozen. There's so many of them now. Luckily, over the years, we've seen a lot of unique gimmicks for the genre, and this one started out actually kind of cool with the fact that this character is someone who was aware that isekai was a thing. He went to a fantasy world, and he was pumped up to go on a big adventure. But of course, things immediately started out rocky for Naofumi, and his journey from the first episode to where we are now is honestly, I think, one of the best and biggest accomplishments about the Rising of the Shield Hero. And this episode was also a really good finale, as it was filled to the brim with lots of action, some brand new characters who are going to be joining Naofumi's party, and also I think the moment that everyone's been waiting for. A nice tender moment between Naofumi and Raphtalia. Will they, won't they? Do they kiss? Do they hug? Is that all that's going to happen? What's going to happen with their relationship in the future? Inquiring minds want to know, and we're going to have to find out. I'm going to go ahead and say that as of the recording of this review, there has not been an official announcement for a second season of The Rising of the Shield Hero, although personally I think it actually is going to happen. This was an incredibly popular anime this season for a number of reasons. I think initially it caught the attention of a lot of people because of the controversy behind the very first two episodes of the series. Everything from false accusations of rape all the way up to having your very own slave. There were a lot of controversial elements about this show, but if you just took it for what it was and realized that it was just trying to tell a fantasy story, I think you could actually get behind it and enjoy it. There was a lot of controversy behind The Rising of the Shield Hero, and that quickly got swept under the rug when people fell in love with these characters. Naofumi in particular, who I think is a fantastic lead, Raphtalia, who might be one of the cutest secondary characters I've seen from a show, and Philo, who is effectively an animal mascot character, and anybody who knows me knows that I hate those type of characters. But she managed to be just as enduring as well, and so was this entire season. But what about this episode? How did the final episode of the series come to a close? Well, we actually got a great continuation from the last episode where Naofumi is throwing down with Lark, Therese, and Glass, warriors from another world who are also battling against the wave and also have to take down the four cardinal heroes in order to save their world. And that means there's going to be a lot of fighting, and this episode certainly had a lot of it. And it was also really well animated. I especially love that they focused on Naofumi fighting against Glass, as their last battle was just not good for him. He got his ass handed to him by Glass, but now he's gotten a lot stronger, he's leveled up, he has more powerful shields, and he's able to go toe-to-toe with her, and even manages to fully defeat her in this episode in a very triumphant scene. While he's battling against her, Raphtalia, Philo, and all of the other characters are battling against Therese and Lark. We don't get to see too much more of them in action, but really this entire confrontation is all about Glass going up against Naofumi and showing the desperation of these characters. Glass is from an entirely different world, a world which is on the brink of destruction. Naofumi is kind of in the same boat, but the stakes for him are not as high. He was just brought to this world magically. He never naturally lived in it, and the potential for him leaving is probably a lot higher, even if there is the destruction of this world. And he has to come to terms with that in this episode, realizing that while he is being attacked by a potential enemy, he doesn't necessarily want to kill anyone. In fact, if he can find a method of not killing Glass, he will try and do that. He also realizes that his Soul Eater shield apparently has the ability to suck away her very life force, which gives him a pretty extreme advantage in battle. And before anything can come to a definitive close, the wave ends and the other heroes have to return to their world, with Lark saying that he will see Naofumi again, referring to him by his pet name of Kiddo. I know people have joked about it before, saying that Naofumi is a cold fish when it comes to denying Raphtalia's advances, but it's pretty obvious here that he's definitely got something of a man crush on Lark, and I think that's also reciprocated from him as well, if you know what I mean. He definitely wants to get on top of that shield. And so the big battle ends, Melromarc is victorious, and the heroes prepare to go about their journey in a brand new beginning. But before we actually get to that, we get to see that Naofumi actually decides to recruit someone new to his team. A character who seems like she's going to be important, but they didn't really spend a lot of time of actually building her up all that much. A former member of Itsuki's team who goes by the name of Lechia? At least I think that's how it's actually pronounced. She's the green-haired girl who basically gets bossed around all the time, and Naofumi wants to give her a second chance by bringing her into the fold. I thought it was kind of a strange decision to bring in a character like that at the very end, especially when I have no personal attachment to them, so I really just don't have much to say about her character outside of the fact that she has one character trait, which is she's not confident at all and she cries a lot. Yeah, I hope she adds something to the team. Maybe we'll get to see more of that in another season of the show. But I think it's the final part of the episode which delivers the most emotional impact, where Naofumi finally gets his wish from Queen Morelia, where he finally becomes the Lord of the land of Sayet, where Raphtalia grew up, and he decides to use this brand new power to rebuild her village, even bringing a lot of people from the kingdom of Melromarc with him as they decide to turn this into a brand new home. Now, the main reason he's doing this initially is so that Raphtalia, Philo, Melty, and all of his comrades will have a place to stay and have a place to live, because there is the potential that if he did lose in a battle, maybe against the other heroes, maybe against a monster, he wouldn't be able to return, and that really builds up a lot as the episode goes on, until Raphtalia can contain her emotions no longer. She cries out to Naofumi, begging him to stay behind in this world, to not leave them behind. Even if they do manage to defeat the waves of destruction, she desperately wants to spend all of her time with Naofumi. And throughout the entire series, Naofumi has made it clear that he's basically going to leave once all of this stuff is done, but it's very apparent that he's become way more important in this world than he was actually in his. And that's when we get that big moment where they either hug or they kiss. The implication, of course, is that they actually do kiss each other, but we really don't get to see it. Basically, he just embraces Raphtalia, and then Melty and Philo and everybody walk up, and they're all blushing and everything, and Melty, of course, is a little flushed, and you have Philo who's upset that she's not the one in the same position as Raphtalia, but it's pretty obvious that these two are definitely falling in love with one another. Naofumi makes the declaration that he will be staying behind, and this is not actually the end of anything. This is a brand new beginning for him, his friends, and Raphtalia. It's a very sweet and loving moment, and honestly, I did enjoy it. Although I have to admit, it still is a little strange considering that Raphtalia still has the mindset and is still technically only 12 years old, but, you know, weird isekai magic, now she's in her 20s. And so the season ends with all of our heroes preparing for their brand new adventure and brand new chapters in their life in this crazy fantasy world. They have new enemies, adventures, and friends to make, and I hope it's all going to happen in a second season. So, what's the rundown on the final episode of the first season of The Rising of the Shield Hero? I like how everything wrapped up here. I really love when the final episode of any season ends with a bang, and we certainly got some really great action from this episode, and it was well animated to boot. Not the best looking stuff I've ever seen, but still pretty competent for what the series has actually decided to pull off. I think the emotional punch of the final part of the episode is probably the strongest element of the episode, especially with Naofumi taking over Raphtalia's town and rebuilding it from the ground up, and making it a place where demi-humans and humans alike can actually live in peace. It's basically the ultimate gift that he could give to Raphtalia, and I'm sure it only strengthened her feelings for him even more. And of course, that's been one of the cornerstones of the entire series, has simply been Naofumi's relationship with Raphtalia, and how she sort of saved him from his anger and going down a very dark path. That's been one of the biggest elements of the Rising of the Shield Hero, and one of the strongest elements overall. That being said, I can't wait for more. I just want to see what the next part of the series is going to deliver. This is essentially just an introduction to a much grander story, and as far as it goes, I think it did a pretty good job. I really liked a lot of the characters in the series. Almost every single one of them was likable. The ones that you're supposed to hate, you really hate, like mine, or excuse me, bitch, slut, and trash. You don't like those characters. The other heroes, while they are kind of doofy at times, I have to admit, even after this episode, I found myself actually kind of liking them for how stupid and dorky they really were. Ultimately, I think the first season of The Rising of the Shield Hero is pretty damn good, and I'm kind of hoping that we will get more in the future. But even if we don't, this was a pretty solid fantasy anime series, which if that's the type of thing that you're into, I can highly recommend. There's at least something that you'll like, whether it be the action, the setting, or the characters themselves. It can still come across as a little generic, but overall, I got a lot of enjoyment from this series, and I just want to see more, especially with the implication that there's a whole nother world out there that we've never seen. There was a great scene where Glass was actually recalling her world itself, and it has a completely different aesthetic than the one that we actually see here, where here everything's got kind of like that European fantasy kind of look to it. Everything in Glass's world has kind of like this Japanese feel to it. There's even samurai fighting against monsters. It just looks really interesting, and it makes me hope to see maybe there's other worlds out there, other heroes that we haven't even possibly seen. Speaking of heroes, they also make it clear that Glass, Therese, and Lark are actually all the distinctive heroes from their world. Glass being the fan hero, Lark being the scythe hero, and Therese, I'm just guess being the bracelet magic hero. I don't know, it's crazy, but I just want to see more. That's the feeling I get from this episode, and I think that's what made it a pretty strong finale. It was emotional, it was action-packed, and it was pretty damned entertaining, which is why I'm going to give the final episode of the series a solid 4 out of 5. If I were to give a score to the entire season, I'm hovering between a 3 and a 4. I can't really decide. 4, I think, is a little too high for the series. While there are definitely a lot of great moments from the show, and the characters are actually really great, there's definitely a lot of slow moments. There's a lot of parts in the middle of the series where things just sort of drag on just a little too long, and honestly, some of the action could look a little bit better, as well as the actual animation itself. But overall, this was a really fun anime experience, and if you're into the isekai genre, I can highly recommend The Rising of the Shield Hero. So that's my thoughts on this episode and the entire season overall. I want to get your thoughts, however. Make sure to tell me what you thought about the final episode of the season and what you hope to see from a potential second season. Did you have any favorite moments from this episode? The battle against the 3 other mysterious heroes from another world? What about that big moment between Naofumi and Raphtalia? Let's have a discussion about all that stuff in the description box below. Thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more anime reviews, topic discussions, and reactions. And if you guys want to help support my channel, of course, one of the best ways to do that is simply to watch these videos and like them. But if you want to go the extra mile, make sure and check out my Patreon and PayPal account. One of the best things about my Patreon is that if any of you guys actually donate $10 or more, I will actually review an anime series of your choice. And word to the wise, someone has already done that, and I'm already getting ready to review an anime that I probably would have never watched, so make sure to stay tuned for all of that. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching these reviews so much. If you want to see any of my previous reviews of The Rising of the Shield Hero, make sure to check out the playlist on my channel. You'll see all of them there. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.